We talked a lot about trust, like superficial trust. We have a staff that they love each other. They want to spend time together, go to dinner together. We have some staff that's on a skee ball league together. They really care about each other like as people, but we talked about that we have to really dig into what that looks like professionally. Because it's one thing to trust somebody as a person, but then do you really trust them professionally? And are you comfortable sending the students in your class to their reading lesson?
That's Lynsy Oswald, former principal of Hamilton Elementary and now coordinator for K-12 instructional programs in the Moline Valley School District. She led Hamilton to its highest math MAP scores in the building's 11-year history. By bridging the gap between social and professional trust, she helped drive stronger outcomes by creating a community for students to thrive.
I think that the more direct I am, the better. Again, that mutual respect, and I want them to do the same with me. And so I'm just honest with people and I ask questions and I want to meet them where they are. But I think that one of our goals is to all get better professionally. And to do that, I think we just have to be honest and direct with each other. The more I've done this, the more I've realized that just shows people that you love and care about them and you want them to be the best version of themselves.
In this episode, you'll learn why confusing social trust with professional trust can lead to stagnation and how embedding yourself in planning time and peer walkthroughs closes gaps. I'm Dr. Matthew Flippin, and this is Transformational Educators. Give us a picture of, is it Moline, Illinois, and Hamilton Elementary? Tell us, what did that look like when you first stepped in?
Yeah, I would love to share. So I actually went to school in Moline. I was a student at Hamilton, which I am now the principal of. So that's very exciting. My life very much came full circle. We here at Hamilton have about 600 kids, 575 to 600. Our free and reduced lunch rate is just under 60%. So very diverse population, lots of different students coming from lots of different backgrounds. We have some students that's parents are doctors and attorneys and things. And then we have other students that currently live in a hotel in our neighborhood, or we also have a homeless shelter not far from here. And they come from there as well. So we are very diverse, which is one of the things that I love most about our school.
Yeah, no, that's, about 5 years ago when we were kind of starting Graceland, and I was visiting with educators, asking them about, hey, what's different? What's changed in 20 years? You mentioned the thing about, I will call them the homeless or near homeless population, which is, I think, reported now to be about 10% of our children nationwide are in some kind of homeless situation. So that is challenging. It's great to hear that you even recognize that and know that. But yeah, so tell us about Hamilton. When you went to step in to the role, I think you mentioned there was a little bit of a restart or a new start that happened.
Yes.
Even though this is where you went as a child, it wasn't the same.
Yes. This building used to be about 100 students, and they closed it 12 years ago and rebuilt it. So we added a $17.9 million addition onto our building. And so it went from a building of about 120 to 600. And so when we reopened Hamilton, I became the assistant principal, and I did that for 6 years and then became the principal for the past 5 years.
When you reopened, did you start with hiring a whole new staff at that point?
We did. So very exciting opportunity as a new administrator. We had everybody had to apply to come. So if you were in a building that was closing, you were guaranteed a job in our district, but not necessarily at Hamilton. And so everybody applied to come and fill those positions. It was a school that is built around staff collaboration. So we have garage doors that come up throughout the day. It's very much we call it a fishbowl. It's very open opportunity for, people to collaborate and students to collaborate. It's a really fun, bright, airy environment. And so we knew that wasn't necessarily something that maybe everybody was looking for. And so you applied to come, and then we got to hire teams. So if you applied to come over, you were applying to be a teacher. And then we, the principal and I, were able to kind of build those teams based on strengths and challenges of different people. And so it's kind of like building a baseball team. I kind of related to that. It was fun to just, find the positions that work for people, and blending staff from lots of different schools in the community, which is really exciting, and just fun to kind of have a new identity, and build around that. So I'm very thankful for that opportunity.
Oh, yeah. Lynsy, when we look at schools that are struggling, sometimes you'll hear administrators say, wow, if I could just replace all my staff, that would solve all my problems. I don't think necessarily hiring a whole new staff automatically solves all the challenges of this.
No, it did not do that. It definitely, in so many ways, it was amazing, right? But it brings new challenges. Again, you're bringing culture from lots of different buildings, and also we were coming from a place of principal, and I was a former teacher at this school, and he was the principal there, and so we already had a relationship, with some of the staff members that were coming from that school, and so just really being intentional about not making it like an us moving together and then other people being outsiders coming in. And building a culture that was new and fresh and not trying to tie it to the old school that we were closing. So we have really small schools in our community. Most of the schools here are 1 or 2 section buildings. This is the first time we opened a 4-section elementary school. And so that also brought challenges. It was really exciting, but we definitely had to work on, I guess you could call like chain of command, and not in a disrespectful way, but just kind of knowing like who you're going to report to and what this person is going to do. I was the first assistant principal at the elementary level. And so what does that look like? Assistant principal versus principal, and just making sure that him and I were on the same page. And so there was definitely new challenges, but so many strengths. And again, very thankful for that.
Yes. Well, you're a very positive person. So I know you saw all the good and also felt with the challenge. What did you see as some of the biggest barriers that were preventing teachers from working together initially?
So we were able to build in common planning time for every grade level. And that was huge and something we hadn't been able to do in the past in these smaller buildings. So our specialists had kind of come and go out of different buildings across the district. And so it wasn't necessarily that first grade was both going to have planning time from 8 to 8:45 in former schools. We were able to do that. So our specialists are here almost full time. And so our teachers have common planning time 4 days a week. So every second grade classroom goes to a special from 9 to 9:45, for example. And so giving the opportunity for those teachers to have that common planning time and then to use that common planning time, right? And so just kind of setting up a structure. So once a week, I attend common planning. Our instructional coaches attended as well. And so it's set up, it's built in the schedule as part of our culture now. And we all sit down and we talk about, what's going to happen the following week, what the lesson is, what the assessment's going to look like, what the objective is. And again, that's something that I'm a part of and I think is important. So I know what's going on in the classroom. And the instructional coaches are there as well. Some of our teachers, some of the grade levels meet more than once a week. Again, they have 4 days that they can meet, but we go once a week. And so they know that on Tuesdays, we're going to be at their planning time. And it's been very beneficial for the building, but it's also been helpful for me. I found that I get less emails, less questions throughout the week because they know that I'm coming on Tuesday and they can ask their questions then. And so it's kind of been a multi-purpose thing that's, I think, helped out in both ways. But I just have a better understanding what's happening in the classroom after being there.
Hey, educators. I hope you're enjoying this conversation. At Graceland University, we believe real change in education starts with compassionate leadership and practical support. That's why we share stories like this. If something in today's episode spoke to you, maybe about your purpose, your next step, or how you can make a bigger impact, I invite you to explore how Graceland walks alongside educators through degree programs and strategic partnerships. Scan the QR code on screen or follow the link in the show notes to learn more. Now let's get back to the episode. Generating time for collaboration is, I would call that step one,
yes,
right?
100%. Yes.
So
yeah.
That intentional structure that you did to make that happen. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean people collaborate, coming together. So what did you do to foster, I would call it like deeper collaboration, which requires a level of trust, vulnerability?
Yeah. So we have really hard conversations, and that's something that I've encouraged here at Hamilton. I think that we've talked a lot about trust and just, that like superficial trust. We have a staff that they love each other. They, want to spend time together, go to dinner together. We have some staff that's on a skee ball league together. We, have some staff that's on a volleyball league together. And so they really care about each other like as people, but we talked about that we have to really dig into like what that looks like professionally. Because it's one thing to trust somebody as a person, like, and like them and but then do you really trust them professionally? And are you comfortable sending the students in your class to their reading lesson? And are you comfortable, because the professional trust is a whole different thing. And so really building that professional trust is something, and again, having tough conversations. I don't want a tough conversation, or I don't want the conversation to happen in the parking lot. Let's have it right now. How are you feeling? And so bringing people into that conversation, like, okay, so how are you going to do that? What am I missing? What struggles is that going to bring? And just opening that up and respecting each other enough to have those tough conversations together, I think is something that we've worked really hard on.
What's an example of a tough conversation?
Oh, I mean, I have a lot of tough conversations. I just recently had a tough conversation with one of our newer teachers. I'm transitioning, as you mentioned, to a different position, and just sat down with that person and talked a little bit about this person that wants to have a future in administration, and had some concerns about some of the things this year, and just wanted to touch base and coach him through some of those, and kind of make sure that he knew some things that I think he needed to work on for next school year. And I've just found that the more direct I am, the better, right? And so I think that there's, again, that mutual respect, and I want them to do the same with me. And so I am just honest with people, and I ask questions, and I want to meet them where they are. But I think that one of our goals is to all get better professionally, and to do that, I think we just have to be honest and direct with each other. And so I think the more I've done this, the more I've realized that that just shows people that you love and care about them, and you want them to be the best version of themselves.
Yeah, I think about that sometimes there's what I think I've communicated as an expectation. And then there's how that actually gets executed. And you're like, okay, well, I could start with maybe I didn't communicate the expectation clear, but let me re-communicate. Hey, here's the expectation. Here's what I see as the gap. And so that it's not you're a bad person. It's really it's a behavior-based discussion. Is that?
Yes, agree. And then I think just giving them the time and the resources and the space to do that, and then following back up with them. Like, my expectation is that this is going to happen, and I need this to happen. And then checking back the next week, how did it go? What can I do to support you? And so, I mean, the follow through on that, I think is good. But yeah, I just think having trust and just knowing that I'm a former coach, a former athlete. And so I think that I naturally just coach people because I want them to be the best versions of themselves. And similar, we've had, a couple staff members that I've moved to different positions in the building. And, some of them maybe weren't super excited at first about it, but then have come back later and said, thank you so much. Like, I found my love for teaching again. And I just really appreciate you, seeing that in me before I saw that in myself. And so ultimately, I just, I want what's best for people. And I think that sometimes I just have to make those tough decisions and have tough conversations, and they have to trust that I'm doing it because I care about them and I want what's best for them.
Yeah. Balanced with want what's best for children and the community. Now,
Oh, yes. Yeah.
What sport did you play, Lynsy? What was your sport?
I played softball.
Well, I was going to say, I bet it was softball because you used the baseball analogy of having the right people on your team, which I love that. My daughter played softball for a long time as well. So she switched to volleyball, which I loved, indoor volleyball. so yeah. I mean, I think, the idea of coaching is such an important skill for leaders, whether you're the principal or the, a lead teacher. But this idea of not making it personal. I also find sometimes that leaders, they see the mismatch in those expectations, but they wait. And that waiting can almost build resentment of like, oh, this still isn't being done. I was trying to give you another chance. I really probably need to check myself on, did I communicate clearly the expectation? So I think the faster we reset expectations, the better. So I know you also have some special training. Tell us a little bit about that and how that fits into this idea of collaboration, cooperative learning.
Yeah, so I am a national trainer for Kagan Cooperative Learning. It's the work that Dr. Spencer Kagan has done. He's in San Clemente, California, is the headquarters. So during the school year, I'm a principal. During the summer, I travel around and train other educators. And I always say it's like the best of both worlds for me. And so it's fun to go to other places and learn about other education systems and just work with teachers and principals. And so, yeah, so we are fully trained here in our district, and our staff is fully trained. We have Kagan coaches in our building that help support. Our instructional coaches are trained in Kagan as well now. And so we have built a collaborative environment, and our goal is that all students are engaged and on the hook and have equal status in their classroom. And it's really fun to see.
Yes, outstanding. I love that. I love that. So we didn't touch on this initially, but from a performance standpoint, what did the school like when it was kind of first reformed and started? And then how did things progress as you started to shift right people into the right positions and got people on the same page? What did that journey look like?
Yeah, it's been really fun to kind of ride that wave. Obviously, during COVID, we took a little dip, a bigger dip than we would have liked, like most. We've surpassed our math score since we opened the building 11 years ago. Our RIT score has continued to go up, which has been really exciting. Again, a little dip during COVID, but now higher than it's ever been. So that trend has gone up, which is really exciting. We've worked really hard on that. Our reading scores took a bigger dip during COVID than math, unfortunately. The majority of schools in the nation saw. And we're continuing to try. We're almost to our pre-reading RIT score. We're 1 point away. And so we're so close to getting back to where we were before COVID. But that has been a challenge for our building and something we're working really hard on. We had a lot of kids see a lot of dip in their reading during that time. So, but overall, like I said, our MAP scores have continued to trend up. We actually received a model school designation from HMH model schools. And so we got to go present on that last year, which was really exciting. And we have a great school. So I'm very thankful for that. We have excellent educators, and our parents are very supportive. We have a community that supports, public education and supports us, which is really great. And so I'm thankful for all of those things.
Yeah. So, and I would think that this cooperative collaboration model also has an impact on retention. Have you seen that be true as well?
Yeah, no, we have a staff that stays, which I'm very thankful for. We, rarely have somebody leave. And if they do leave, it's for a, different opportunity, maybe a better opportunity. One of our teachers is going to move on to be an instructional coach in another building, which very excited for them. Other than retirement here and there, we aren't hiring a lot of staff. So, our teachers, they stay and they, like what's happened. We have a very overachieving staff, which I love about them. They have high expectations for themselves and their students and each other and me, and all of those things. And so that's one of, I think, my advice would be to, new administrators and new principals would just be to hire great people, because they will make your job a lot easier. And it's fun to work with them.
Yeah, hire great people, and when you realize you haven't, don't be afraid to make the change. Because Lynsy, your story, first of all, your school isn't has 60% free and reduced lunch. I just want to restate that, and yet, given that, you still have well-performing students, and you have a staff that stays, and that is not what is most commonly found, and so. Obviously, there's some approach about care for people, expectations, collaborative environment that have created a place where even though it might be challenging at times, people stay with it. And so that's well done. I can see why you've been promoted.
I think that, I've learned a lot in 11 years. And I think more than anything, just my goal is to take care of teachers and give them the resources that they need so that they can take care of kids. And I've worked really hard at, thankfully, rarely have to say no if they're requesting something. If they're really looking for, curriculum or books or something, I try to find a way to make it happen, or professional development and things like that. Because I just, like I said, I have a staff that's they're overachievers, and I want to give them every opportunity to be successful. So,
we talk about our why often, right? What's your why? And for me, I always think about a real specific child, as my kind of persona of my why. Is there a story or about a child or a situation where when you think what is my why that I put in all the effort at Hamilton that I did? that stands out?
I'm actually fostering right now. My husband and I are fostering a first grader here at Hamilton. So last year, she needed a safe place to go, and she's with my husband and I now. So she is currently my why for sure. And I want Hamilton and the schools in Moline to be the best, for her. And so, yeah, she's definitely my why.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Lynsy. We're adoptive parents ourselves. I always think about great teachers have an adoptive heart. They always say, my children, instead of these kids. And it's that love, that true love for children. We all, even adults and children, we really want to be known and loved and valued for the purpose, and involved in purpose. So I'm really grateful for you and your husband stepping in.
Yeah, thank you. It's been really, really good, and she's great. So she's keeping us young, and our house is a lot. We empty nested for a year and a half, and then she came into the picture. So we went from a really quiet house to a really loud house. So
if you could share with a new administrator, and you probably did this because you just handed your role to someone else, if there's one technique, and the technique side, as practical as you could get down, if there's one technique I would say, hey, do this to really continue this collaboration, cooperation, what would that be?
So we have implemented walkthroughs in our building. And so our SIB goal for this past year, was that every teacher get in another teacher's classroom this year and do a walkthrough. They're intentional. We use rubrics, rigor rubrics from model schools. And the work that we've done with Dr. Thornell, which I think he's been on here previously, we're doing a lot of work with him. And so the teachers have said over and over again that walking through other classrooms and, being intentional about what they're seeing has been the most impactful. And so we're going to continue that for next year. We're adopting, or they're going to continue it, and I'm going to help support it from a little bit further away. The focus is going to be on our new ELA curriculum that we're implementing. We're also going to tie in some of those cooperative learning structures and looking for, some of that as well. And so they're excited to continue to be in each other's classroom. And I think, again, that's part of that, collaborative practice and not being afraid to, share new ideas and take risks and all of those things.
There's a specific technique called trust-based observations. Gentleman that wrote a book about it, I'll send it to you, but versus observation versus evaluation, and just making a clear distinction between what's happening. The observation is that kind of coaching opportunity, but the way to do that just actually takes trust to a deeper level. So yeah, love to share that with you because it sounds alive.
I would love that. And to go along with what I was talking about earlier, yes, like building that trust of not just I like you, and I think you're a nice person and I want to play volleyball with you after school, but like I really trust what you're doing instructionally, and I'm going to send my kids to your class for reading group because I trust that they're in good hands and that you're a solid instructor. So
yes, absolutely. I love it. Well, this has been wonderful. Lynsy, I'd love for our audience to be able to follow and connect with you. I also think you've written a couple books as well.
Wrote a couple books for Kagan Cooperative Learning on classroom management and social skills. And so that's out there on the Kagan Cooperative Learning website with my instructional coach and our school counselor. So
okay. So not only can you follow Lynsy on LinkedIn and other social, but you can even hire her as a consultant.
Yes.
That's fantastic. Well, thanks so much, Lynsy, for being on today.
Yeah, definitely. It was awesome to connect. Thank you for connecting.
Yes. Well, if you found today's episode valuable, as I did, please share it with a colleague or educator who would benefit. And you haven't already, please follow Transformational Educators so you never miss an episode. And until next time, keep leading with purpose and transforming schools into places where everyone thrives. If today's conversation gave you fresh insight or inspired you to lead with purpose, please follow the show and tell a friend. It helps us reach more educators who want to make a difference. For more stories, resources, and tools to support your leadership journey, visit graceland.edu. Until next time, keep leading with courage and care.